Welcome to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast with Shannon Scott, where we talk about life's seasons, joyful, challenging, and everything in between, and how God is working in all of them. Join us each week for conversations filled with hope, truth, and the encouragement that He is always making everything beautiful. This podcast is sponsored by Kava, helping you take your next step in faith through digital resources that deepen discipleship. Check them out at Kava, QAVA.tv. And now, on with the show.
All right, we're back.
We are back. We are back in the saddle and ready for a new podcast.
And for the first time, we are doing a crossover episode, which means we are airing this both on the Lead Like You Mean It podcast with Masi Willis
And the Everything Made Beautiful podcast with Shannon Suzanne Scott.
And this is going to be fun.
It's very
because this will be, for the Lead Like You Mean It audience, a much more personal look into Masi Willis.
Yes.
And for the Everything Made Beautiful audience, they will get to experience my longest friendship. This is a 25, it's more than that because I've been married 27 years. So it is almost a 30-year friendship.
Yep. And I love it. Like, there's not a whole lot of people that get to say that. And it's something to be really grateful for.
And it's a accomplishment, maybe we could say.
Yes.
Because it's not easy to just maintain a friendship that long.
No, especially when you've lived coast to coast.
Yeah, which we both have.
Yes. And we've been able to prioritize.
Yeah.
It's a choice in relationships. So, yeah.
So I'm really excited for the Everything Made Beautiful audience to know about you, meet you. Many of them probably met you at my Christmas event a year ago now. But just if I could do by way of intro for that audience,
Please.
Masi, as I said, is my longest friend, dear friend, and we'll get into the specifics of that. But she's also a certified leadership coach, and we together have been, she has let me co-host on her Lead Like You Mean It podcast. And I just got to say to the EMB audience, go get the podcast, listen to it. It is just such good leadership content from Masi. And we've been on a journey over the last, for her, about 5 years, and for me, probably going on 3 now, of leadership development, but personal transformation in terms of leadership. And we both became certified and are getting to now lead ministry teams as well as corporate marketplace teams through what it looks like to know yourself and lead yourself well, and then let that flow into how you lead others because you know them as well. So go listen to the Lead Like You Mean It podcast for those of you who are listening to this through Everything Made Beautiful.
Well, and I would like to say to my Lead Like You Mean It audience to echo what Shannon is saying and go listen to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. Shannon and I, obviously you've experienced Shannon with me on this podcast for Lead Like You Mean It. But when you listen to Everything Made Beautiful, there's this hope unleashed even when things don't feel beautiful. But she makes such an articulate statements around and hosts people who really live out that. And she can explain that a little bit further. But that's what I think this crossover is going to be for the Lead Like You Mean It audience, is that Shannon, you've experienced her in leadership, but her knowledge of Scripture, her deep theology, and her alignment to what our values are, not only in leading all marketplace spaces, but ministries as well. You will really experience that listening to her podcast. So I've loved it.
So sweet. Thank you. Well, today we have papers in front of us. For those people that are watching this on YouTube, we have papers in front of us that might look like we're super prepared, but this was just honestly jotting down some notes of things we wanted to make sure we didn't miss. But other than that, this is just going to be an organic, and I am guessing vulnerable conversation leading into Thanksgiving. You know, this is airing on Monday or Tuesday, depending on which audience you are, and Thanksgiving's in about 10 days. And there's a lot that comes with Thanksgiving. And so as we were thinking that through, we thought, let's just have a conversation around what this season looks like. And I'll just set this up, and then I'd love for you to just start unpacking this, and we'll just see where the conversation takes us. But one of the things that we share in common, and very particularly this season, is the fact that holidays highlight emptiness.
Yeah.
And both of us have significant emptiness this year at the holidays. For me, it's that we are new empty nesters, or as I've said, somebody told me, don't call myself that. I'm a bird launcher. So Jeff and I have launched our last bird. And so our house is quieter, and we don't get to have all our kids, for Thanksgiving because Allie lives across the pond. But also, as many of you may know, my mom is experiencing dementia. And now it has progressed to the point that really nothing that we used to know is, she can't pull it anymore. You know, she knows I'm her daughter, but there's just not a lot that she's able to pull forward. Anything she can is from 3 decades ago, as if it was yesterday. So while it's sweet to be able to converse with her and her know me, I've now effectually lost my kids and both my parents in kind of the same season. And so I feel some profound emptiness around that, even as I get ready for the holidays, which are my favorite time of year.
Right.
What about you?
Well, and you think about that even as you're talking, holidays, they're so traditional.
Yeah.
And as children, not really, I would say the majority of, especially the United States, we all have this idealistic world.
Yeah,
of,
Norman Rockwell.
yes, tradition. And we can no longer stay in our childlike nature, right?
Mhm.
So the traditions have to transfer, and then that becomes your children, and that becomes grandchildren. And so for me, that hasn't been my story. And I am not absent of people. I have tons of, and I've said this before, family around me, but there is an emptiness that maybe it's hope deferred for me, that I don't have my own children and my own spouse, and haven't. And that shapes my holidays of where I belong in it. My family and my friends are always including me. And as much as I'm loved and adored, and really, I think I make my parents proud, there's a moment where I stand in the in-between. And I'm not really the kid, and I'm not really the spouse or the parent. And so I'm in that in between, and the emptiness comes on during such traditional moments.
An author that I have read quite often, her name's Emily P. Freeman. She made a point in an email that she sent to her mailing list this week and said, she's a new empty nester as well. And so she talks about the grief of being an empty nester, and there is some. But she said there's a greater grief in being an empty nester because there were never birds in it.
Yeah.
And so, you and I are both empty nesters, but in very different ways.
Yeah.
And there is specific grief attached to both. And this year, as we were talking, we just felt like we wanted to have this conversation for our respective audiences, as well as introduce them to each other, because we want them to know the other. But one of the things that we've never hidden, certainly on my podcast, but on yours when we started, was that we are Jesus people.
Yeah.
And our faith is what undergirds us. And even as we deal in leadership a lot of times, and often in secular organizations, which we love the opportunity to do, what drives us and what upholds us and sustains us is our faith. So as we think about Thanksgiving and the, everybody give thanks aspect of Thanksgiving, we just felt like we wanted to not draw a difference, but maybe make a really clear distinction between what it looks like to have Thanksgiving versus be grateful and have gratitude.
Yeah.
So you had some really specific thoughts around that, especially as you think about it in this season.
Well, and, from the lead like you mean it side of things and thinking about pain, one of the things that you and I coach marketplace and ministry with is we have to lead ourselves first. And in pain, if we're not real careful,
Yeah.
what's in our upstream becomes everyone else's
Problem.
issue and problems. And I've often seen myself over the past years of when it got really grief stricken and I felt everything, my family wouldn't get the best version of me.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking about what could transform that. No one else can transform that. No one can fill that void except for the hope of Jesus. And
Yeah.
so during a season of being thankful and Thanksgiving, even in my own work, I started signing my emails grateful.
Yeah.
And even my executive assistant, she would change it and I'd say, no, I want it to say grateful. She'd go to a professional side of things.
Right.
And it was because I think gratefulness for me is a continuation. It's from a deep place. It's not a moment. Thanks for pumping my gas. Thank you for grabbing that coffee for me. But I'm grateful for my friends, and trying to grab a hold of that during this season is really what I wanted to make a point of doing, as well as when you're in this place, what does it look like to really see gratefulness? It often comes when we give more than we receive. And so what does that look like during a Thanksgiving and holiday season as well? Can that help the pain? What do I do with that?
And you're almost saying, what does it look like for gratitude and gratefulness to be a daily formation thing versus a seasonal performance
That's
thing?
good.
It's like, oh, let's all get together and suddenly we list all the things we're grateful for, but what does it look like to sit in that posture? Because I do think no matter the pain, that we can find something to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
And you have said so often, you and I actually both say this, we just say it differently. I often say two things can be true.
Yes.
God is good and life is hard. And one does not cancel out the other. They almost coexist in this beautiful tension. And you say pain and promise can coexist. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have the promise of life, and I have a promise of impact and influence, and I have the hope that this life is no mistake. I haven't done anything to change the trajectory of what the Lord was going to do, but it doesn't mean I don't experience pain through the promise. And on this side of heaven, I'm not real sure I'll find resolve in that. And on the other, it's not going to matter. And so I often, I think in my emptiness or in moments of sadness, it's almost like people want to fix that for you or solve the circumstance. But that deep gratitude, I have to turn that mirror on myself and say, before you sit in your circumstances, realize that you weren't even promised this.
Yeah.
I wasn't even promised today. And so choosing that, it's a choice. I have to lay down that place of feeling sad or empty and choose how am I grateful, and where do I go to find the things that I might not see so clearly in my gratefulness and the promise while the pain exists.
You just said something that might have been a little prickly for people. So I wonder if you can talk about it a little bit more. Have you gone through seasons of your life where, specifically as it relates to marriage and children, that you felt like God owed you that?
Oh, yes. And I argue with him. You know, when people talk, maybe you don't have a faith in Jesus Christ and you might have your faith in something else. But for me, it is incredibly personal. And I am more vulnerable with him than I am with anyone. I scream and yell and cuss a little at him. And I'm like, why not me? And why do you give other people 3 and 4 chances at this?
Yeah.
Or, you know, we talked about this on your podcast last year. You know, people are like, oh, just be so grateful that and thankful that you didn't have to deal with a husband.
Or
Because, man,
in-laws
you missed a bullet. I'm like, are you kidding me? You
Yeah.
have absolutely no idea what that feels like to be on the other side of that. or people who have had a hard time raising children and they're like, well, I can't wait till they get out of the house. Man, they take up so much time.
Mhm.
And my thought is if I could just give time to a child. So it is, I have felt like I've proven myself, Lord.
Mm. Yeah. There's a lot of
But I
terrible
haven't.
people who've gotten this opportunity and I
Right.
haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do start asking, what did I do wrong? Why not me? And when I get in those places, it's why recently, probably over the last couple of years, I've started saying I've had the luxury of singleness. And that is not for anyone married, unhappy, or divorced, or widowed to go, oh, be glad you don't feel my pain. That's
Mhm.
not what I'm saying. The luxury of singleness has been what it has afforded me.
Yeah.
And the 30 years of singleness has afforded me hundreds of young high school girls that I've worked with and kids overseas that I've worked with. So not my children. I won't have the luxury of bearing my own child. But even for my niece and nephew, they're different in my eyes, I
Mhm.
would think, than other nieces and nephews who have aunts that have other children. For me, they are the closest thing. They're who
Yeah.
I will invest in, who I want to invest in. I call it the luxury of singleness to help my language be much more encouraging than emptiness of singleness.
And, just what a humble affirmation of the sovereignty of God to say, I was not promised marriage and I was not promised children.
Right.
I was promised the presence of Jesus.
Yep.
That's what I was promised. I was promised the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I wasn't promised marriage and singleness. And I think when we get that out of whack is when we
Mhm.
become entitled and a little
Mhm.
bit spoiled brats with
Mhm.
God is what I call it. When I'm like, Lord, are you kidding me?
Yes.
It's like, wait a second, what is this posture?
Yeah.
Everything I have, I didn't deserve.
Right.
That's so good. One of the things we talked about was, especially in leadership coaching, it's one thing to talk about it in the context of corporate or your job or your business or even your church staff or your ministry. It's a different thing with your family.
Yes.
And so we both
100%.
said, at specific points during leadership coaching with organizations, people start talking about their family,
Yeah.
spouses or children or in-laws or that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And light bulbs start going off
Yeah.
of, oh, that's why we butt heads, or that's why we have a tendency to miss each other in communication.
Mhm.
So one of the tools we've definitely talked about on your podcast is the communication
Yeah.
code. And 3 of those, clarify, collaborate, and critique are great in the marketplace context.
Mhm.
But 2 of them we thought might be really helpful as people
Mhm.
plan to sit down at tables full
Mhm.
of food and be, stuffing their faces, but also be opening themselves up to
Mhm.
possibly awkward or even combative
Mhm.
conversations. And so 2 of the communication codes that work really well in that context are care and celebration.
Yeah.
So start with whichever one you
Yeah.
want, but just tell people a little bit
Sure.
about communication code and why it's helpful and how those 2 could be helpful with Thanksgiving in
Sure.
view.
I love the communication code, and really the gist of it for those from the EMB community is think about Morse code. And you know that Morse code is probably dashes and dots, but you might not be able to actually receive it because you don't know how to translate it. So transmitting is not the only side of communication. You have to receive. So if we were able to give our intention a specific code, the person on the other side would be set up to receive it the way we wanted to give it. So critique being, I'm going to drill in, ask a ton of questions because we want to shape this thing, collaborate. We're doing this together. We're idea sharing. I don't really know where we're going right here. I'm not real sure where we're going on vacation. I'm not real sure how we're going to approach this project, but throw some ideas out. Clarify helps you diffuse an interrogative kind of approach. Go, hey, can I clarify this? I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking. And that word, that code helps the person on the other side put their posture where it belongs. The other 2 codes are care and celebrate. care, I think, is so crucial in families, especially when you are spouses or you are siblings and you come in and you're like, hey, how was your day? Or how did this project go at work? And as you start describing how it's happened, oftentimes someone on the other side will begin to fix it or want to fix it or try to fix it. When care is simply just care. Listen to what happened today. I want you to take it all in, appreciate of what has occurred. And that's it. There's no fixing. Now, for those of us who are problem solvers and logistics, that takes self-control.
It does.
That takes self-awareness. And it's great if you can say, you know what, I'm glad you asked me that. I need you to care in this moment. That should be your indicator. Just say, man, I'm so sorry that happened.
So sorry.
Or, man, that's got to be tough to carry. Or, you did just lose your job and you're such a valuable asset. I am so sorry of the fear you might be experiencing right now, the frustration you might be. I see you and I care that this feels that way to you. So that's the care piece of it.
And I can say in marriage, a lot of times our husbands, for those of us who are women, our husbands want to fix what we just want them to listen to and to care for. And so this has been really helpful for us, for Jeff to know, okay, I don't need to start Googling or figure out a 5-point plan or go to the hardware store, whatever the thing is. She just needs me to listen and say, I'm so sorry, babe. I think for those of us who are fixers, oftentimes if I find myself on the other side of someone who's pouring out something to me that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to fix this, saying, if something comes to mind of a way I can be helpful to you in this,
yes,
I would love to know that. That's very different than let me know if you need anything, which isn't helpful, especially in seasons of grief or things where we can't even see which way is up, much less give a bunch of people tasks to do. But I think just for those of us who are fixers, it feels good to say, I'm so sorry that's happening, or I'm so sorry that's your reality, or gosh, that really shouldn't have happened. I'm so sorry that happened to you. If something comes to mind that you think I can be helpful in, please let me know, because it would be my joy to do that for you. Kind of scratches that itch of us wanting to solve something, but having no idea how to solve it.
And even as you were speaking, to help those of you guys that are listening, if someone doesn't know the code, no need to start teaching it in the moment.
No.
But thinking through the concept, you're trying to make sure you understand what they're desiring from your communication. So in that moment, you could say, man, help me understand what you need from me during this moment. I'm listening and I really care about where you're at right now. Or are you wanting me to give you some ideas if they come to mind?
You do that with me all the time.
Yeah. And we try to. Now, that's part of, I hope, the listeners that are listening to us. It's the transformation that Shannon and I both have made. And it's been hard work.
Hard work.
It has been a solid 5 years. And really, I'd say the most transformation has been happening over the past probably almost 3 years of me on my own doing this. And when you are coaching, the mirror is so turned on yourself.
Yes.
And you mentioned something, I'm going to go back because I'm rewinding, but you mentioned something about this really impacting families.
Yeah.
And for me, mostly in the marketplace, manufacturing, distribution, and some energy companies, it's interesting to sit around the table because a lot of times the examples of what people give, or when I'm asking them, do you have any ahas or have you noticed anything? It kind of starts first in the family.
Yeah.
And part of that's because we don't have healthy disagreements around marketplace, around politics, around the Thanksgiving table. You know, oftentimes we want to, really make our point, and we really need to value that piece. Like, what am I doing? It doesn't have to be agreement, but how do I approach that? And so it has started most often, and I see families transforming, which is why I think ministry, organizations, whoever you are, looking at leadership development, yes, there's an ROI financially, but the exponential bank of helping heal broken relationships, that literally, you can't put a dollar figure on that.
Well, and we have said, yes, we're leadership coaches, but that isn't about, is your title in the organization that of leadership and do you have people reporting to you? Everyone is a leader.
Yes.
You are leading yourself, and that is your most important subordinate,
Yes.
is yourself.
Yes.
So everyone is a leader,
Mhm.
and you have to be a great leader of yourself if you can ever hope to be a great leader of your children or your friend group
Yes.
or your class or your organization
Or your HOA.
or your HOA. Yeah,
Yes.
it's leadership is not for corporate America and the C-suites.
Yeah.
It is for everybody who wants to be the best version of themselves. Because you don't fall into great leadership.
Yeah.
It is an intentional discipline.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the celebrate part of the
Yes.
communication code. And then I want to go back to maybe a little bit more vulnerable space before we close.
Okay. So celebration's the fifth code, and we do not do this well in the United States at all. And we work. And when we finally accomplish that event or that, that gross profit number we're looking for, or that
Project.
sales or that project, we're like, yay. And
What's
then we
next?
move on.
Yep.
And it reminds me of years ago when I worked with an incredible branding agency, and we would work like 11 months, at least 10, if not 11 months on one particular event we did every February. And it's hard. 11 months with hundreds of people trying to come together to produce this incredible event that lasted 3 days. And we used to go back to work, take a few days off, and move on into budget, reconciliation. And we began to pause the night after it was all over and do a celebration dinner. And it was around the fact that I was bothered that I was leading a team of people that we just didn't celebrate the hard work we had just done.
And you're not saying that you didn't say good job during the
No.
process, or girl, that was awesome, or thanks, man, that was a clutch decision. You're saying taking time, not in the midst of the rat race, but to do nothing but celebrate.
And remember.
Yeah.
Remember the mountains that he got us over and how he absolutely carried us through the valleys. And so celebration is just that. Sitting at the table, celebrating moments, choosing today to celebrate a win. What is my win? And I love celebration dinners. So if you want to implement this into your Thanksgiving, try celebration around the table. Sit at your Thanksgiving table and say, hey, let's celebrate each other. So let's go, everybody celebrate one thing for the person to their right. Or if you want, you're small enough that you can celebrate something in each person that's either meant something to you for the year or that you've recognized in them. We do not give words and celebration as often as we should to remember accomplishment. Because celebration is, we did something, we accomplished something. How often do you ask your kids to get all A's and you're like, woo, you got all A's. Okay, moving to the next quarter. What do you do special around celebration?
Well, and I think for those of us who are people of faith, there's such an emphasis on humility, as there should be. Jesus was the ultimate example of humility, and we want to be humble people. And so I think some of the reason that we don't celebrate is because we don't want to be accused of being prideful.
Yeah.
And so, yay, you finished your book, or you spoke at that thing, or you pulled off this amazing event at your church, or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, it was nothing. It took a team. It was and so there's some of the false humility because we want to be so careful not to be prideful. But I think that the thing that is so important to hear is we as people need the celebration and the affirmation when something either good has happened that we've done, or the good things people see in us.
Yes.
Because it's often real easy for us to see our flaws and very, very hard for us to see our, successes or our gifts or the things that make us unique?
I have to choose that for myself because I have some pretty heavy head talk. You don't
Same.
experience it on the other side of me because I'm very different for you, but how I lead myself, I have to make sure I don't have as much head talk. So a simple exercise for me is my alarm goes off on my phone at 5:30 and it says when set you off.
W-I-N.
W-I-N
Uh-huh.
for those that are not Southern. And then set me off and then hope. The win part of that is the celebrate. Choose
Yeah.
one thing that was a win today. It constantly reminds me to reflect. It can be simple. I didn't have road rage coming home from the airport, or this person admitted this about themselves and allowed me to coach them to health.
Yeah.
That might seem normal to me because it's every day. But when I can name it, celebrate it, then I choose to do a better job of what do my celebrations look like and celebrating others.
That's so good. Setting an alarm on your phone. 5:30 for you, it's 5:30 at night. It can be right before bed or whatever it is. But and when we're together and your alarm goes off, you make me do it
Yes.
too. And so it's like, what was a win today? And the other thing that does is it puts us in the posture and the heart posture of what went well. And it is impossible to be focusing on everything that's wrong when you're focusing on what went well. Now, that's not some pie in the sky. Nothing's wrong as long as you focus on, that's not what I'm saying. We've already said two things can coexist. But I find that I don't as easily just descend all the way into the pit of despair if I'm able to point out, articulate, purposefully remember things that have gone well and are good and are blessings.
Well, in that order of celebrate, set you off, and hope, well, win, set you off, and hope is purposeful. Like I'm celebrating first. The set me off normally is a tendency in me. Whatever really got my heart beating fast or my blood boiling, what really
Triggered you.
got under my skin, normally is an indicator for me, something that I need to work on. And so that becomes my tendency I'm working on. And then I end with hope, and it's a single word. What am I hoping for tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I try to say that word when I go to sleep at night so that I can wake up thinking about watching the Lord fulfill that for me in that day. Because where in this season of emptiness, it's an everyday reminder that my hope isn't always deferred.
Yeah.
My hope is immediate. I can see it daily. And each thing that I hope for is equally as important of the things I've dreamed about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. So before we close, I would just love, one of the things that I've always hoped for my podcast, and you articulated when you started yours, was there are enough shiny, perfectly, put catchphrase, clippable things out there for people. And in actuality, life is not shiny. It's not easy. It is seasons. It is mountains and valleys. It is pain and promise. It's all those things together. And so what we don't want to do as Christians or as leadership coaches is get on a podcast and be like, let us tell you all the ways we've cracked the code.
Yes.
Because it's much messier than that. But we want to be vulnerable and authentic to the extent that other people can feel like maybe they have transformation opportunities as well. So as we head into Thanksgiving and we really think about, for you and I both, the last 3 years, let's do win, set me off, and hope in terms of what we're celebrating, but also maybe let's go back to why we entered this process in the first place, what we'd begun to notice about ourselves, and then what we're hoping for as we close. So you start, we'll just dialogue back and forth. What would you say is a win of, this far in your life?
Yeah. Well, that's great because the Lead Like You Mean It audience has heard me say this before. We said it at the very beginning that we don't really need another leadership podcast.
No.
We don't need another leadership book. We don't need another thought leader, which is a very irritating word for me and triggering word for me. And for the Everything Made Beautiful podcast listeners, I kind of want to go back and say a win for me is that you and I both have worked for some of the most profound, amazing leaders in our careers. And for me,
Ooh, that is so true.
yeah, for me personally, I worked in State Farm coming out, and I had a fantastic leader. His name was Doug, and he loved me well. He did some of the hardest things for me, and he taught me that really leading well is saying, this role is not for you, because someone put a formula on your head and you're asking me to fulfill the equal sign. And I need you to find out in your heart, is this what you were purposed for?
Wow.
And I was like, wow.
Because your whole trajectory was, I'm going to be a State Farm agent and open my own agency.
I mean, my mother was the most amazing State Farm agent, manager, leader, executive. My brother's an incredible State Farm agent. I have a risk management insurance degree. This was the formula.
Yeah.
But I always had this tension. And the fact that my leader didn't just see she can open an agency and make us millions. He saw she's walking somewhere that she's not purposed to go. The other one was a fantastic ministry leader. I was at church under Andy Stanley's leadership. You'll have to speak towards that. But watching him and his purpose, the Lord specifically called him to, and he helped me see from his leadership how well he led, how well he taught, how well he wrote, and that he lived by his words. And even he created an environment that caused me to long to go to church. And I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I really learned what vulnerability and accountability and leadership of myself looked like.
Yeah.
Then working for Louis,
Yeah.
I mean, fantastic leader. The one thing two things, Louis and the entire team taught me excellence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And excellence not in I'm an excellent person, but that every single thing was done with excellence. The way we put stickers on envelopes, the way we set a table, the way we invited people to be a partner as a volunteer, how we allowed them to borrow our name and our brand as their own. And then Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Prior to that, my faith was just like, you check your check marks. You're either right or you're wrong. It's kind of the God focus.
Yeah.
Or Jesus is love. But when I encountered Holy Spirit in me, it became so much more personal. And so we've had his leadership.
Yes.
I've had leadership from Chick-fil-A through Dan Cathy. So I want to say my win is that through my journey of singleness that has afforded me to change different careers, I have been 100% blessed by some of the greatest leaders out there, writers, communicators, thought leaders. So I don't even presume to be on their level at all, as much as I'm the beneficiary of it and hopefully able to transfer it now in what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I'm like, I told you we didn't prepare. I'm like thinking back through what has been the win, for the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. You talked about the whole reason that it's called Everything Made Beautiful is because scripture says in Ecclesiastes 3 that he makes everything beautiful in its time. And that is really the banner over my life. And so when you started going down that road, you're talking about the great leaders you've been under, and I have been under the same and several others. And I would say the win in that season has been that everything in those seasons has been made beautiful.
Yes.
I do believe in giving people their flowers. I think you name people's names when you're honoring them, and you don't name names if you can't honor. And so I appreciate that you named names. But yeah, My podcast knows that I grew up at First Baptist Atlanta because both my parents were on staff. And so, sitting under Dr. Stanley and working at First Baptist gave me a love for God's word.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Stanley loved the Word of God,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to hold his giant study Bible with his big hands, and he'd hold it out over the platform, over the pulpit.
Yeah.
And he'd shake it in the air, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
He's with Jesus now, and I'm sure my dad is up there with him
Yes.
saying, "Okay," and they're talking all things theology with Jesus, which is
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
But right after that, at the age of 18, Andy hired me at North Point, and there's not much I didn't learn from Andy, from the value of choosing to cheat your job, don't cheat your family.
It's good.
In light of my past circumstances, my past experiences, my present circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do?
Yeah.
Basically, don't see how close you can get to the line, see how far back in wisdom you can stay.
Trust over suspicion.
Choosing trust over suspicion. That, he was my youth pastor and then my boss and pastor for so much of my life that there's not much that I don't call his name to. But I will say, Andy was the first person who affirmed me as a writer.
So good.
Literally texted me one day and said, "You know that you're a writer, right?" And has always been so kind. He and Sandra both in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hold that dearly. And then, yes, we both worked at Passion for Louie, who again, I grew up listening to. But when I first started sitting under Louie, I would say that Louie, for the first time, helped me understand what it looked like to have worship as a way of life, not as a segment of Sunday morning.
Yes.
Or
so
just
good.
attached to music.
Yeah.
It was, what does it look like to glorify God in all things? And therefore be worshiping Him.
Yeah. The jeans
in
sermon.
all things, the designer jeans sermon, so much. Again, much like Andy, there's very little that Louie has not influenced in my understanding of theology and scripture and those things. And then, to your point, working for he and Shelley at Passion, excellence, excellence, excellence. Not for the sake of excellence, but because we serve the most excellent being, and that's God.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I'm like, man, I wish my standards weren't so high, because it's hard to go places that are not excellent and be like, don't be judgy, don't be judgy, don't be judgy. But we do have Louie and Shelley and Passion to thank for that. And it is still the most excellent thing I've ever been part of.
Me too.
But yeah, then if I hop, skip, and jump over people, I worked for Christy Monda for 5 years at Loganville Christian Academy, and she was the first person that taught me what it looks like to give me feedback on how I was coming across based in love.
Yes.
We had relational equity, and she was the most adept at not only saying, I see this in you and this is who you can be, and I'm going to back that up with, this position or this promotion or whatever. But she was also like, hey, because I care so deeply about who you are, and because I don't think you realize what it's like on the other side of you when you say this, I want to give you some feedback. I felt so loved and so cared for and led so well by her. And then at Church of the City, I will owe Darren forever for giving me an opportunity to teach God's people. And, he didn't say, here, do it once, hope it works, and then you'll never do it again if it doesn't. He continually would put me up, and he would affirm that gift in me. And the thing that he said to me that I'll never forget, right before I spoke the first Sunday, is he said, you don't have to be anybody other than yourself.
That's so good.
And for somebody who was like, oh gosh, I got to be perfect, and I've got to make it just like this or just like him or just like her. I don't have an Australian accent. This is not going to be good. I'm already starting at a deficit. He just texted me that morning and said, don't be anybody but yourself.
So good.
And so, yes, when I look back over the years, God has made everything beautiful from every one of those seasons, not because everything in the season was beautiful.
Right.
There were some really hard days.
Yeah.
But God is faithful to
Mhm.
finish what he started.
Mhm.
And his good, my good and his glory have been made beautiful. So
Yeah.
just to follow, there's many others wins I could celebrate, but to follow your leadership track, I would say yes.
Yeah. Yep. We're both of us very blessed and fortunate. And I'll be honest, here's the vulnerable piece is the mirror turned on me
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, and truly, when I started seeing the version of myself in those places,
Same.
and that we are human, and we do have triggers, and there are things uniquely to each of us that get triggered, and when we actually war up, and
Mm-hmm.
we come
Oh, I
in.
can get my back up in a hurry.
Yep. We can get onto attack, and we call that kind of a weapon. Like, what is that weapon? And I still get triggered, and I still know what my weapon is. And the key to it is pulling the safety
Yeah.
and having people in your life. They'll say, hey, pull that safety.
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest wins recently, personally for me, is this time last year, I was incredibly triggered.
Mm.
I was siloed out. I was not being collaborated with. My creative ideas were being questioned. My relationships and connections felt like they were being taken from me. And I could have the whole year just kind of cyber warfared a particular person's name,
Mm.
who they are,
Mm.
the greatness of them. I felt like I had reason, but that is so typical for the connector voice because my currency
Mm-hmm.
had been taken, my currency of people. And so the greatest win for me is that relationship healed and we became partners.
Yeah.
And recently she celebrated, I was always waiting for your cyber warfare,
weapon.
your
Yeah.
weapon to come out. I was waiting for it to circle back around, and it just didn't. And
Yeah.
I was vulnerable with her and said, I found my two safe places, and these two people, I would call, you being one, and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
help me put the safety on. I'm being
Mm-hmm.
triggered. And we would process through a better way to assume, like,
Yeah.
that's the trust over suspicion for Mandy. I just constantly trust over suspicion. So that is also a personal win of my own transformation, but an admittance to everyone. I will forever be going through that.
Mm.
That is an infinity loop forever. I will not be removed from that natural makeup in me until I meet my maker.
Yeah.
And I am whole and I am healed
Yeah.
forever. So it's not a thing you reach. It's not a plateau that you come to. It's not something you summit. Leadership and guidance in our spiritual walks and our business walks and personal lives, professional lives, it is an ongoing everyday pick it up, carry it well, start over the next day.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, we have both said that there were times in every place we've ever been where we were the worst version of ourselves. And I would say that over the last 3 years and certainly the last 18 months, I've sat in that a lot and gone,
Mm-hmm.
there's no such thing as it was all them and no me.
Mm-hmm.
There's also no such thing as it was all me and no them.
Yeah.
In everything we go through in life, there is responsibility and accountability
Mm-hmm.
on, quote, both sides of
Mm-hmm.
anything. But I really did want to get to the bottom of why I
Mm-hmm.
became the worst version of myself at some point. And that is what has been transformational about Five Voices
Yeah.
and about this leadership process that first started with me being coached,
Yeah.
then becoming a coach. And so I would just say to people who are listening, I want to vulnerably say, I would not be who I am. And I would not be as healthy as I am. Am I the healthiest I could possibly be? No. Am I saying I'm the most healthy person on
Mm-hmm.
earth? Absolutely not. Am I healthier than I was? No question.
Yeah.
And it's because alongside study of scripture and getting to know God more intimately and specifically, I paired that with Search me and know me, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Show me what it's like on the other side of me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really painful.
Mm-hmm.
It's given me a lot of empathy and compassion for people who have led me, if I can just say that frankly. And this is not woe is me. It's just, it takes two.
Yeah.
And so if you are thinking, I want to know what it's like to be a healthier version of myself,
Yeah.
I would recommend getting into coaching.
Yeah.
Certainly, Masi and I are both coaches, and all the information for us is in the show notes. But if you have an opportunity to become a better version of yourself, I recommend that, because there's constantly something I can work on.
Yeah.
I never am going to get to the point where there's a win and there's a hope and I've conquered everything in the middle. I'll always have something that needs to be worked on.
Yeah. And to just differentiate for people, because there's a whole lot of coaches out there,
Yes.
right? It is a word used often. And, when people call me a life coach, I'm like, yeah, no, not so much. Leadership, really thinking about through life, we need tools.
Yeah.
We need ways to adjust. I don't really live in regret. I think if I look back, like you said, and I see what the ugliest version of myself was on all these different teams and in organizations, it's given me the doctorate to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And it's not shattered my heart as I looked back. It's softened my heart as I looked back. It's honed it. So where I was sharp, it's softened those edges. And where my edges were too soft, it's honed them to sharpness. So really thinking about it, life coach, health coach, personal coach, leadership coach, I'm leaning towards really calling out the leadership part, because it is actionable.
Same.
And it's tactical products. And before we end, just to thank Jeremy Kubicek and Steve Cockrum, because out of their own inadequacies, out of their own unhealthiness, and out of their own relationship together, and reflecting back over marriages and other business relationships they had, they created these products.
Yeah.
And this is the predictable transactional leadership way to implement when you know your makeup, your Enneagram, your DISC, your working genius, your 5
Your right
voices,
path.
your right path, your Myers-Briggs. All of that's great. But if we can't predict out of knowing something, we can't look at that blueprint and then build a house with it. Or for you, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I have a Bible. I know some stuff that's in it. I can parrot it when I need to, but it's not transforming me.
Yeah, right.
That's not the same.
Right. And so we're both saying from there, it steps towards action. And that's where leadership coaching has helped ourselves first, and will help others in the future.
You have to apply what you learn.
Yeah.
As we end and as we kind of think toward Thanksgiving, I do just want to say I'm so grateful for you. We have walked some.
You can make me cry.
We have walked some significant mountaintops. We've climbed some mountains.
Yeah.
We've also climbed some mountains that we thought we were going to die on the side of.
Yeah.
We've also been in some significant valleys, some deep grief. But there is something about a friendship that's forged over length, depth, height, and I call them the ride or dies, and you're one of my ride or dies. And I just want to tell you that I'm grateful for you. And I'm really grateful for your willingness to be vulnerable on a podcast, because leadership, ministry, no matter what, we're never half people. We're whole people.
Yeah.
And so we can't only address half of ourselves.
Right.
We have to address the whole thing. And so your willingness to go first in doing that was what gave me a way to do that for myself and to arrive where I am, which is the happiest and healthiest I've ever been. And I have you to thank for that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm grateful for the same reasons. Also, I think for me as a friend, I love that you've always coached up. You've always helped me. I'm grateful that you've said, let's study this. Like, I want you to own this, Masi, for yourself. You've cheered for me, and you've gone down in the valley with me. And in the valley is where things grow. It's rarely on the mountaintop, right? They're snow capped, but there's not a whole lot of pansies up there.
Yeah.
They're mostly in the valley. And so just walking through all of those valleys with me, and grateful for a friend who fights for me, fights with me and for me. Because
You've also had to hold me back a couple of times. Shannon, don't do that.
Well, and me too, like, Masi, don't go round up anything. So anyway, in this season of Thanksgiving, I think gratitude is something that this world needs to understand more than sometimes simple thankfulness.
So we encourage you, listeners, wherever you find yourself this holiday season, specifically this Thanksgiving season, try to make gratitude and gratefulness a daily formation versus a seasonal performance. There's something we can put our perspective on and be grateful for. And pain and promise can coexist. And they will for many of us this season, but they don't have to be hopeless.
Yeah. It's really good.
Thanks, Mace.
Thank you. Do you want to prepare everybody for December?
Yes. We're going to do another one, right?
Yes.
Another holiday crossover episode coming in December. And we're going to talk about peace. And I'll just set it up by saying, I often have said, peace on earth. I would just settle for peace on me.
Yes, that's good. That's a good little cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening wherever you get your podcast. And for our audiences, we encourage you to listen to the other podcast.
Yes.
Most of which release weekly. There's plenty to go back and listen to and catch up on. And we don't take for granted that you could be listening to a lot of stuff and you gave us your time today.
Yeah.
So we're wishing you a blessed Thanksgiving season with those you love and nobody you don't.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for Everything Made Beautiful. We're grateful for your willingness to tune in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share today's episode. For more from Shannon, including articles, resources, and upcoming events, visit shannonsuzannescott.com. We'll see you next time.